Okay, I'm back, and it's time to look at McGonigal, which isn't just McGonigal. This is a moment where we can look at a lot of the grander picture of the sting that many of us believe Trump is a key component of, and that has been the sting that's been playing out for years now. And it was part of, it was going on before his presidency, during his first presidency for sure, continued while he was out of office, and is still going on. And there's a lot, there's a lot of folks, I think most folks, who are expecting a wave of justice to occur. And those people feel like it hasn't happened. Are folks that they're kind of blinded to where it has been happening, because there's been wave after wave of justice that has come about over the years, and they've missed it because their favorite news source, their favorite commentariat person, didn't tell them about it. And they've missed it because they have in their mind certain individuals that they have developed a hatred of. And most of that comes from the narratives that are spun by clickbait media. And that clickbait media has told them that certain people are the real bad guys, and they've convinced themselves that what justice looks like is these particular big name people being put on trial, being arrested, being put on trial, public smearing and whatnot of those people. And they're so focused on that they miss all the other justice that has happened and continues to happen. But there's another group of us, myself and quite a few others, and a lot of people in this audience, who, because we've gone back and looked through so many cases and we've seen how the cases connect together, we notice that there's all these through lines of justice. And there's all these politically corrupt people and swampy businesses and agents of foreign governments that have been investigated, arrested, and that it's led to a cascade of other arrests. And that justice has not been asleep at the wheel or absent from the wheel. Justice has very much been an active force in the country. And there's been a swamp draining effort that began before Trump took office the first time, and had continued while he was out of office, and continues to this day. And the McGonigal IG report is one of those moments that provides us not just an opportunity to look at McGonigal, but to look at the grander sting that is part of that. And when you see these things, it's clarifying, and it's also it's satisfying, and it makes me feel all the more confident that, one, justice continues to be an active force in this country, an active good, and that it's doing greater work than we can know during the time that it's most active. We can't be aware of these things as they happen. We tend to see their effects later on. And two, that so many people will never appreciate it. That it's a thankless thing that these law enforcement officers and these intelligence professionals are engaged in, because the most people will never notice it. Not only will they never notice it, they will likely feel like it never happened. And one of the things that I worry about is that people will turn against Trump or turn against people against it in his administration because they don't see the justice in the way that they envisioned it occurring, which is really the way that their favorite clickbait commentators told them it would. James Comey is going to be paraded around in cuffs and he's going to be hung, and they're all guilty of treason. If these people aren't charged with treason, there's no justice in the world. And the definition of treason is completely ignored. The definition of treason has become whatever you want it to be. Anybody does anything, that's treason. And the punishment for everything is death, and the punishment or life in prison, or there's this extreme overreaction amongst a lot of people on the right that is just like the extreme overreaction on the left. And the left has their favorite boogeyman that their clickbait media programs them to focus their hatred on. And the right has their favorite boogeyman that the clickbait media on the right programs them to focus on. But when you break free of that programming and you get into the documents and you start looking at how these things connect, you notice the through line, and you notice the net that has been cast over the swamp. And that's what we're going to try and look at today. And the one difficulty in showing it to you is just like whenever you're trying to, like when you pull up a net out of a swamp, there's all of these things you got to get out of it, right? And it gets all tangled up, and there's all this junk in it, and it's kind of gets tedious. So I'm going to try to do this without getting too far into the corners of the net. But it is difficult because there's some things we're going to come across that sort of demand further explanation. And there's going to be things we come across as I go through this that are going to shock a lot of people, especially people who either primarily consume content on the left or primarily consume content on the right, because those media realms have narratives that are just glued in, that are just so well saturated into their audience's minds. And I'm going to confront that, and it's going to be kind of jarring. And there's going to be a few things in here that I know as I was reading over it, I was like, oh, shoot. When I read this part, there's going to be a segment of my audience that goes, what? Bullshit. And reacts to it. And there's going to be a segment of audience on the left that goes, bullshit. And there's going to be parts of it where both sides do that. And I love it when that happens, because then you're really onto something. Then you're really onto something there. But I don't worry about it because I know it's right. I know it's right because I have the documents, and I have so much evidence that goes along with it. And there's a few things where you're not, it's not tasseomancy. It's not reading tea leaves. It's not grabbing a crystal ball and things like that. It's following the through line and deducing what's going on. So I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to rely on my good friend Dawson to in his work to explain some of it. But buckle in, guys, because this is the fun stuff. For us document nerds, for those of us who like tracking the sting, this is where it gets fun. All right. So one of the things that's come out of the prohibited access files, remember there was that narrative that Cash and team put out that they found a secret room in the FBI headquarters that nobody was allowed access to. And it had all these documents related to all these super important investigations that the FBI didn't want to look at and tried to hide from everybody. Yeah, whatever. That's just the fun narrative and story they came up with. Anyway, these are the prohibited access files that have to do with a bunch of really important investigations that they kept prohibited from even other people in FBI headquarters because they needed to clean the FBI out, right? They kept this stuff hidden, not because they didn't want to look at it and it was the deep state wanted to bury it and hide it from everybody. No, they kept it in prohibited access so that it would be safe from the prying eyes of corrupt individuals in DOJ and FBI that they were still cleaning out and getting rid of. And now they've gotten rid of so many of them, they're going to these files. But really, it's not like they were forgotten about. These super important investigations have been active the whole time, and they've been going back to them over and over again. Remember the declassified documents earlier with all the media leak investigations, and how agents from headquarters kept on reopening those cases and looking at information that was in them and then closing them out again without charges. It's because they were going in and they were looking for more insight into how these media leaks were occurring, because they were tracking down crooked people. They were tracking down swampy people in government and also crooked people in the media. They were using people in the media to find out how they were getting sources for this information, because it was compromising and it was obstructing other investigations. They had to seal off the leaks. And as they're looking at these prohibited access files, we're learning more about Charles McGonigal, the man who was heading counterintelligence in the FBI in New York, one of, if not the most important FBI office in the whole country. And he was compromised by the Russians, and he was compromised by the Algerians, and he was compromised by the Chinese. And McGonigal had his hands in all sorts of investigations, in WikiLeaks, in Hunter Biden investigations, in Steele dossier, all of these things. And he was crooked as could be. And IG Horowitz came out with this review this month, investigating McGonigal's misconduct. Now, this doesn't get into every single bad thing that McGonigal did, but it does give us a lot of information into some of the bad things he was involved with. And McGonigal is right now in a federal prison cell. I forget which prison he's in right now. And he'll be in there for 50 months, which isn't long enough, but it is what it is. It's also possible that McGonigal is not, the DOJ is not done with him. It's possible that new charges will be brought against McGonigal, but they waited on those. They charged him with what they could at the time. But it's possible that there are some other charges that could be brought against McGonigal. It's also possible that McGonigal may get a chance to go on a field trip a time or two and be a cooperating witness against someone else after they get indicted and get put on trial, right? So this report from IG Horowitz looks at McGonigal, and he was the special agent in charge of counterintelligence FBI field office starting in October 2016 until he retired from the FBI in September 2018. In January 2023, DOJ unsealed 2 indictments against him, one in the District of Columbia and another in New York. The one in District of Columbia, a grand jury charged him with concealing that he had received $225,000 in cash from an Albanian national with ties to the Albanian government. And that's person A in the indictment. And I forget his name right now, but we'll come across it in a minute. And that was while he was serving as a special agent in charge and falsely reporting aspects of his foreign travel and his foreign contacts. The indictment further charged McGonigal with failing to disclose his meetings while serving as the special agent in charge with person A's business associate, person B, and that's Dorian Ducka, who was described in the indictment as a former Albanian senior government official and an employee of a Chinese energy conglomerate. a Chinese energy conglomerate. Could that be the same Chinese energy conglomerate that one Hunter Biden had relations with? Yes. Yes, it is. In September 2023, McGonigal pled guilty in the U.S. District for the District of Columbia for concealing that he had received $225,000 in cash from Person A. In another indictment prosecuted by Southern District of New York, a grand jury charged McGonigal and an alleged co-conspirator, that would be his Russian translator, Sergei. I can't believe his name just jumped out of my mind. I had it. Kastikov, Sergei Kastikov. What is it? I have. I'm following his case. I can't think of it. I'll think of it in a minute. That case hasn't been resolved yet. With violating the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, money laundering, and conspiring to commit money laundering by providing services to and receiving payments from none other than Oleg Deripaska, a central figure in the Spygate, Russiagate scandal, a man who is close to Putin and who was paying off all of these different swamp creatures, including people that were planted inside Trump's campaign, like Manafort, and were working against Trump. He is a sanctioned Russian oligarch, and after McGonigal retired from the FBI, he continued to get payments from him. The investigation determined that prior to his retirement, and while serving as special agent in charge, McGonigal began building a relationship with Deripaska's agents in the hopes of doing business with Deripaska after McGonigal retired from the FBI. He was going to cash in on his FBI connections and knowledge and influence and get paid by Deripaska to use those. In August 2023, McGonigal pled guilty to this. By the way, his lawyer was Seth Ducharme, who was Bill Barr's right-hand man. And a lot of people took that as a negative sign. I took it as a positive sign, to be honest. And because Seth Ducharme knew a lot more of what was going on, I believe, based on emails and other things, and just his role beside Bill Barr, who's an architect, I think, of a lot of this swamp draining that's been going on for years. I am firmly in the Bill Barr is a good guy camp. And so I think that Seth Ducharme, being McGonigal's defense attorney, I think that was a good thing, because I think that Seth Ducharme, I don't think he got McGonigal off as much as I think he protected ongoing investigations from being exposed by McGonigal taking these things to trial. I didn't think that initially. I thought that. I was glad to see Seth Ducharme there, but when McGonigal got this sentence, I still wish it had been more. But now looking back on it, I just wonder if there's so much more going on that it actually, I think that it makes sense that he got this sentence, is what I'm saying. All right, so in December 2023, McGonigal was sentenced to SDNY to 50 months incarceration. February 2024, he was sentenced to 28 months incarceration to be served after the 50-month sentence. So in total, 78 months. Or what is that, like 6 years? This report describes the OIG's administrative investigation of an alleged allegation that McGonigal, while serving as SAC, had obstructed a criminal investigation that he was then supervising by disclosing sensitive, non-public case information about the subjects and targets of the investigation to the foreign national identified as Person B in the DDC indictment, and by withholding information relevant to the case from the investigating FBI New York case agents. Specifically, between October 2016 and September 2018, McGonigal oversaw FBI's New York investigation conducted jointly with the SDNY's attorney's office of a Chinese-funded think tank called China Energy Fund Committee, CEFC. That company was under investigation. Also, China Energy Company Limited was under investigation, and Patrick Ho was under investigation. According to Hunter Biden, the fucking spy chief of China, an officer in CEFC NGO, and others. There's several CEFCs, but they're like one underneath another. And there's like one in China. There's one that's an NGO in the US, but it's all CEFC. The CEFC investigation led to Ho's arrest in November 2017 on bribery and money laundering charges relating to his efforts at the United Nations in New York City and elsewhere to bribe officials from Chad and Uganda into awarding business contracts to CEFC China. At the time of Ho's arrest, FBI New York also intended to seek a search warrant to seize specified items in the possession of another individual of interest in the investigation, an Israeli-American target, who was target number 3. As soon as I saw that in this report, I knew exactly who the F they were talking about, and you're going to recognize this name too. It's none other than Gal Luft. Gal Luft, the man who media on the right, MAGA media on the right, tried to laud as being some sort of whistleblower against the Bidens. Remember when Gal Luft, I think it was New York Post, was the one who broke the story? Remember James Comer was trying to get him to testify, and I really want that New York Post story, but Brave search sucks sometimes, even if you put New York Post in the thing. Will it give me, let's see, if any of these going to be, no, those are all, no, that's not what I want. There we go. Remember this? Remember when this guy came out and started attacking the Bidens and saying that they were, how crooked they were, and he had all these allegations about how the FBI was after him because he had all this dirt on the FBI, on the Bidens, and so the Biden DOJ came after him and he had to run and go into hiding and all of that? Horse shit. It was all garbage. And I said it was garbage at the time. And I've always said this guy was full of it. He's as crooked as can be. And when he was indicted, I went through his indictment. This guy was money laundering and he was gun running for CEFC, and he was doing it in Africa. He's the exact, like, stereotypical dual citizen, swampy deep state warlord type person, gun dealer person, black market, just exactly the kind of person that's a bad guy in James Bond movies and Jason Bourne movies and all those things. That's exactly who this guy is. But because he said mean things about the Bidens, media on the right and politicians trying to court favor and attention from MAGA decided to treat him as though he was some sort of quote unquote missing witness against the Bidens and the corruption investigation that James Comer was running, and that the crooked Biden DOJ was after this guy. And they ran cover, either wittingly or unwittingly. They ran cover for this absolute swamp creature, international swamp creature. They ran cover for him. And this guy, the whole reason he was attacking the Bidens is to cover his own butt and to try and court favor with some influential Republicans to try and defend himself against the indictment that was coming his way. The whole reason he didn't get arrested earlier, and the reason he didn't go down and get the bracelets during the Trump administration was because he was warned by McGonigal. You may remember that Patrick Ho was arrested in New York. And one of the things we know about Ho's arrest is that he was lured back to the U.S. thanks to Hunter Biden. He was told it was safe for him to come back. And when he did, he got arrested because it was not safe for him to come back. But the same did not happen to Gal Luft because McGonigal had warned him. And that's what this report says. The other thing that happened was McGonigal warned Patrick Ho about those items that the FBI wanted to get from him, and they disappeared. He did not return to the United States when expected. In December 2018, Ho was convicted and subsequently sentenced to 3 years in prison. Target 3 never returned to the United States. But I have good news for you guys. I have good news. A year ago exactly, September 2024, the last filing in this case says that the defendant, Gal Luft, has now been rearrested and the extradition process is proceeding. The government expects the defendant to be transferred to the United States in the coming weeks or months and will update the court when it learns when the defendant is expected to arrive in the district for presentment. Damian Williams, remember him? He was actually pretty damn good, but media on the right told you otherwise. So that's the last filing, though, and it's been exactly a year. I don't know if... let's find out right now. Let's see if another case has popped up with Gal Luft as a defendant. I hope so. But I haven't seen it. So I might be about to get really excited if there's a new case. It brings up 2 cases right here. It's the same one. They're both the same one from 2022. Yep, last filing September 9th, 2024. September 9th, 2024. So if Gal Luft if he's now back in the United States, then it hasn't been... There's not a court filing that's told not a public court filing anyway that's told the judge about it. It could be that he hasn't returned yet, and this process has been going on for a year to extradite him. And hopefully he's been sitting in a very uncomfortable, nasty, cold prison cell somewhere. Hopefully. Hopefully he didn't get away like he did the first time they arrested him, and it was in Cyprus. He was arrested in 2023 in Cyprus, and they ended up letting him out, and he escaped. But some other way he was detained. So, okay. So target 3, does it say anything about the public statements concerning his proffer? Co-defendant from Senegal was also arrested, but later charges were dismissed against him. Okay. After Ho's conviction, the FBI in New York continued to investigate Target 3's activities on March 28th and 29th, 2019. At Target 3's initiation, Target 3, which is Gal Luft, met with the FBI in Belgium to pursuant to a proffer agreement with the SDNY, and among the information he provided to investigators was information that in the summer of 2017, the chairman of CEFC China had obtained nearly, but not completely, accurate information about FBI, NY, and SDNY DOJ CEFC investigation, including that U.S. authorities had intentions to arrest Ho and others, including possibly himself, Target 3. Target 3 told the FBI and the SDNY that prosecutors that he believed the source of the chairman's information was someone within the U.S. government. This information was confidential to law enforcement and should not have been shared with anyone outside the limited number of government personnel authorized to have that information. After a lengthy investigation in November 2022, Target 3 was indicted by a grand jury in the SDNY and charged with being an unregistered agent of China, brokering illicit weapon deals, violating U.S. sanctions against Iran. Oh, yeah, he was facilitating the sale of oil from Iran, I believe. And making false statements to the FBI in his March 19th proffer interview. Those false statements that he made to them were probably having to do with the Bidens. And let me go ahead and address that about the Bidens and why I'm talking about Hunter helping the FBI. That's because Hunter Biden is an asset, just like Donald Trump is an asset of the FBI. And what you got to do is you got to put aside the clickbait things and the narratives that media on both sides have told you about these individuals. And you got to put aside what the politicians have told you about these individuals, because they both work undercover for law enforcement agencies and probably for the CIA as well to target these kinds of people. And when the pressure is on these individuals, what they do is they turn against those people. So they turn against Trump or they turn against the Bidens because those people are have political power. And so they go to the law enforcement agency and say, oh, this political person is crooked. I have information against them. And they're hoping that they can exchange that for leniency against them. And the narratives that come out of the media are just that narrative. And they have a narrative purpose where they provide cover to that asset. So it's not exactly to either Trump or the Biden's disadvantage for a large number of people to think that they're swampy, because these undercover assets are trying to develop connections and relationships with other swampy people so that they can then provide information on them and get them caught. The nature of being an undercover asset is that you have to appear to be swampy yourself. If you want to take on the swamp, you need people who can go undercover as other swamp creatures, right? And so those narratives that come out of the left and right media actually help these assets. It's to Trump's advantage that media is constantly portraying him as being this crooked Russian mobster type, because Trump himself has helped incarcerate, or at least indict, a number of Russian mobsters and mobsters of other types. And Hunter has helped go after these Chinese swamp creatures, such as Patrick Ho, but then also swampy Ukrainians. And he was helping them to target Gal Luft. And when Gal Luft realized this, and also remember this was 2019, Gal Luft's sitting there, and it's kind of like with the guy that Weiss indicted, the guy going blind, the Russian agent that was an FBI asset, Smirnov. Smirnov filed false documents with the FBI with allegations against the Bidens, because saying that he was a witness to things that he wasn't a witness to and that he was aware of things that never happened. He made those false statements to the FBI because he believed that he was an asset to the FBI. So he was providing allegations to the in power government, the Trump government, the Trump first admin, against Trump's political opponents, because he believed he could then gain favor and more trust and more influence, and he was working as a double agent. So he was doing those things to further ingratiate himself with his contacts in the US government because he's a freaking double agent. He's trying to get more and more influence and access and information and contacts and build more and more trust so he can get deeper and deeper and deeper into his target's world. Right? Makes sense? All right, now here's where I can solve some dissonance for you. You may think WTF, but Biden was a horrible president. Biden did all these things as president I disagree with. Just because someone is an asset for law enforcement and is helping them fight crime, national, domestic, international crime, doesn't mean that their politics are going to be in line with yours. There's nothing about a person working as a law enforcement asset or an intelligence source that means they have to have the same politics as you. Biden had some really bad domestic policy. And I don't think Biden was a great president. I disagree with so much of what he did as president, and I disagree with so many people that he hired in his presidency. I also disagree with a lot of Trump's hires. But that is separate and apart from whether or not Joe Biden, Jim Biden, or Hunter Biden are on the side of law and order. And it turns out they are. Like when you look at this stuff, when you go through, whether it's the Hunter Biden laptop report, whether it's the James Comer's committees, or all of these allegations against the Bidens, they keep on remaining in the allegation zone. And when you look, just like the ones against Trump do, and you're probably thinking of all of those allegations and have been thinking of all of those allegations. But what you got to see is that they're just allegations. Do this. Every time you think of an allegation against the Bidens that was made over the past 4 or so years, try and remember one that is almost identical that was made against Trump and his family, and you'll find one. They're a mirror to one another because media on both sides play the exact same game with their audiences. And it's super easy for them to do because both the Bidens and the Trumps have worked with law enforcement over the past many years to help drain the swamp. And as I said earlier, you can't drain the swamp without going into the swamp. And that's what both have done. And that doesn't mean we have to agree with their politics. But when you go to the documents and you go to what the evidence points to and you track these things, you see it over and over and over again, that an allegation gets promoted loudly by media and the substance to it, it's just weak sauce. It's just this very, very weak sauce to it. And then you can scratch the surface of it and track some of it back. And somewhere along the line, you'll find someone like Gal Luft or Patrick Ho or Oleg Deripaska or someone connected to the Clintons or a Russian mobster. And it'll be like, what are the chances that these actual criminals that ended up getting charged and convicted, what are the chances that so many of these people brush up against the Bidens or brush up against Trump and they get arrested, but Biden and Trump don't? And as you do it more and more and more, the thing that starts to make the most sense is that the allegations are just that. and they're like the consequence of law enforcement assets and intelligent assets doing law enforcement and intelligent asset work. I hope that made sense. Okay, in December 2021, Person B in McGonigal's DC indictment met with FBI agents, and in October 2022, met with FBI agents and SDNY prosecutors and told them on multiple occasions before Ho's arrest, McGonigal leaked confidential information about the CEFC investigation to Person B. Here's another thing that Luft did as a consequence is that he tried to blame Hunter and throw Hunter under the bus, and it had the effect of covering McGonigal or providing cover to McGonigal, who he was actually working with. In October and November 2022, SDNY Attorney's Office and the FBI New York considered charging McGonigal with obstruction of justice for both the disclosure of confidential government information to Person B, as well as for failing to disclose to the case agents information McGonigal learned from Person B that was relevant to the CEFC investigation. Ultimately, following an evaluation of the available evidence at the time, SDNY decided not to charge McGonigal for obstruction related to the CEFC investigation. You may say, oh my God, I can't believe they gave him a pass on that. But they got him on something much greater, didn't they? On November 17th, 2023, while awaiting sentencing by SDNY and DC, McGonigal agreed to a proffer to the OIG, FBI, and DC US attorneys' offices regarding, among other things, his activities with Person B and CEFCs. That's Dorian Ducka and the Chinese energy conglomerate. As described in this report, McGonigal acknowledged during the proffer interview that he shared information with Dorian Ducka about the CEFC investigation and an anticipated arrest arising from it. In this report, we describe the evidence obtained during the FBI, NY, and SDNY investigation of the CEFC leak, as well as additional information to the OIG obtained from the two FBNY New York case agents. So it's going to be case agent 1 and 2, and then supervisory special agent who conducted the CEFC investigation. And that's going to be the FBI case team. And statements and acknowledgments McGonigal made to the OIG, FBI, and DC during his November 17th, 2023 proffer interview. After describing this evidence, we provide our findings and analysis. I seem to remember that when I read the document submitted for prior to McGonigal's sentencing, there was language in there that identified him cooperating with these investigations. And now we see it. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I remember this. Well, I'd forgotten it until just now. The last time I posted about McGonigal on X was in June. And it's because Ed Martin was interviewing McGonigal. Yep. Interesting. Okay, now I want to see about let's see. Looking at my old post to see about the sentencing where it says that he cooperated. Here, let me just move this over here so you have something on screen. There's my last appearance on Eye of the Storm. We were talking about McGonigal conviction and sentencing then. That was February 2024. And then, let's see. There's his sentencing, 6.5 years total. And then McGonigal's Shestakov. That's the guy who was the translator. Where is my... Why isn't Shestakov coming up in my bookmarks? Maxwell. Oh, okay. That's why. That's why. Okay. That's right. He pled guilty. Earlier this month, he pled guilty, but he hasn't been sentenced yet. That's right. He changed his plea from not guilty to guilty back earlier this summer in June. But the U.S. attorney that was on that case has changed since then. And he hasn't, they haven't done submissions. What's his sentencing supposed to be? I don't see it immediately. Okay, let me go back to this over here. Okay. I covered it in that show. Episode 238 is when I covered McGonigal's sentencing submissions. See how this person was wrong? He gets less than 3 years? Nope, he didn't. He got twice that. There it is. There it is. Here's my post about it. Right here. Yes. Moreover, after McGonigal entered his guilty plea, redacted. And then that's some encouraging signs that he may have given up good info. I am sure his swampy friends are nervous. There we go. Can't resist playing this. Here we go.
Constantly hit. Why aren't people going to prison for what they did to the president? On the other side, throw Bill Barr in prison. And these things take time.
Isn't it great, those of us who have been paying attention to these details and tracking this stuff, we just get to be like that. Right? We just get
people going to
be like Bill Barr and listen to both sides scream these things. Throw each side in prison.
These things take time.
We're just like, watch it happen. We just get to watch it happen. We get to see things like this and go, gonna jot those lines down and remember that this super swamp creature, he provided something. And there's going to be another document one day that comes back around and lets us know that, yeah, there was a lot more going on at that time than was immediately obvious. And that while it looks like someone got off easy, they didn't quite get off so easy. And sure, they deserve more months in prison, but how many months in prison would you exchange for the information that person provides on some other targets? And that's what happened here. And it says so right there. In this report, we describe evidence obtained, blah, 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 methodology, summary of findings. Unless otherwise noticed, the OIG applies the preponderance of the evidence standard. As described in the report, the OIG determined that McGonigal, while he served as the SAC entrusted with overseeing FBI's New York counterintelligence program, engaged in a scheme that obstructed an important multi-year criminal investigation under his supervision and compromised the integrity of the FBI. Specifically, the evidence demonstrates that for his own personal gain, McGonigal cultivated a secret, ongoing personal and business relationship with Person B, Dorian Ducka, and a close associate of subjects and targets of the CEFC investigation, and leaked sensitive non-public information about the CEFC investigation to Person B, including the existence of the investigation and the anticipated arrest of multiple individuals with ties to CEFC. At least 3 people. The impact of McGonigal's leaks on the CEFC investigation was substantial. Person B shared the information with at least 2 investigative targets, Patrick Ho and the CEFC chairman, which was Jianming, I believe, J. Jianming, something like that, which led the chairman to warn Ho and Target 3, that's Gao Luft, that U.S. authorities planned to arrest Ho, 2 other Chinese nationals, and possibly a Jewish person associated with the CEFC, which Target 3 believed was potentially a reference to him, and it was. Based on the evidence described in this report, we concluded that the chairman's warning played at least some role in Target 3's decision not to return to the United States when expected in November 2017. Because Target 3 did not return when expected, the FBI case team did not seek a search warrant for his residence or cell phone as they planned to do, which presented a missed opportunity to gather evidence in a significant criminal investigation. As described in this report, Ho also debated whether to return to the United States in November 2017 after the chairman's warning, which again was based on McGonigal's leaks to Person B, Dorian Ducka. But Ho ultimately decided to return November 18th in 2017 and was arrested. Although Ho was arrested, the leaked information from McGonigal provided Ho a warning and an opportunity to assess his circumstances. Absent a faulty assurance, Ho likely received that it was safe for him to return to the United States. See that? Look at that. Look at that. The leaked information provided from McGonigal provided Ho a warning and an opportunity to assess the circumstances. And absent a faulty assurance, Ho likely received that it was safe for him to return to the United States, could have resulted in that information. So where did he get that, guys? Where did he get that? Who told him? Who told Patrick Ho that it was safe to come back? Okay, I stopped recording and I spent about 15 or so minutes looking for the exact message. where Ho is assured that it was safe to come to the US. And I didn't immediately come across it, but I went back and it caused me to go back and look through Tony Bobulinski's transcript from when he testified to the House Ways and Means Committee, I think it was oversight. And so one of the things you got to understand about Tony Bobulinski is that he's pissed because he got screwed by Biden and the other partners and all these, and Sinohawk and Oneida and all these other LLCs, right? All these shell companies. And one of the things he goes into in this that got completely missed by right side media is that CEFC and the Chinese, like their whole thing was that they would announce a big investment into a company and then they would never pay them. And so House Republicans would parade around these documents and emails saying that Hunter Biden got so many millions of dollars from the Chinese and Joe Biden's family got all this money from the Chinese. But the thing was, it was a piece of paper that said they were going to pay them that much, or an announcement that they were going to get paid that much, but the Chinese never paid. And eventually, Tony Bobulinski got so mad because he hadn't gotten paid, he started thinking that he was getting screwed and that the Bidens were getting paid and that the other people that were part of these shell companies were getting paid and he was getting left out. But really what was going on is that the CEFC wasn't paying anybody. It was all a scam. And so, you know, when Joe Biden says his family never got paid, you know, they never got any money from China, and Republicans are like, no, you're a liar. You're a big liar because here's this email saying that they're going to give you $10 million for whatever. And you got to save 10% for the big guy and all this stuff. But the Chinese never did send it. They never paid. They never paid Hercules. They never did. And so that's what I'm talking about, weak sauce. Anyway, I didn't find the exact thing where it talked about Patrick Ho being assured that he wouldn't be arrested. But I did find where Patrick Ho, as soon as he was arrested, who did he call? He immediately called James Biden, trying to get in contact with his nephew, Hunter Biden, because Hunter had agreed to be his lawyer. But then later on, Patrick Ho was going to pay Hunter Biden $1 million to be his lawyer. Imagine that. Imagine your target is this corrupt Chinese swamp creature, and you help get them arrested, and then they give you $1 million to be their lawyer. And then of course he ended up not being his lawyer, and then he ended up being a witness against him, or at least he was on the list to be a witness against him. And of course Republicans misreported that. The Republican media, right side media, misreported that the DOJ tried to hide that Hunter was part of this case, and they tried to portray it as though he was a corrupt person when actually he was an agent who helped catch Patrick Ho. All right, anyway, back to this. That's a whole nother side of this I just wanted to get into for a moment. All right, in addition, the evidence demonstrates that McGonigal impeded the CEFC investigation by failing to inform the FBI case team about its ongoing contacts with Person B, redacted. Ooh. What could be under those redactions, I wonder? As a high-ranking, because one of the is Nikki Haley under there? Because one of the things McGonigal was trying to do was to loop Nikki Haley into this Dorian Ducka, Albanian, and pharmaceutical company stuff while she was representing the U.S. at the UN. And I don't know, I kind of wonder if McGonigal and Nikki Haley had a thing going on. I don't have any information on that, but I just kind of wonder. She just kind of pops out of nowhere in the documents around McGonigal, and all of a sudden he's in her room while she's at the UN and he's wanting to set this stuff up. I don't know. All right. As a high-ranking FBI official entrusted with overseeing the sensitive counterintelligence and criminal matters, McGonigal's actions were extraordinary. He engaged in disgraceful conduct, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is somewhat repetitive right here. Let me see. What's going on, Hercules? What is it? What? You've already been on camera once. Let me see. Maybe he needs to go out. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm back, and while I was out there with the dogs, I was like, man, I know I've seen this somewhere. That Patrick Ho was told, no, you're safe. Come back to New York. And then he was arrested, and it was the Bidens who told him that. And sure enough, it's actually in this IG report. Further down, though. So if I would have just kept reading, we would have eventually gotten to it, but my brain is leaping ahead. So the FBI case team told OIG that based on the described evidence below, FBI New York obtained during its investigation of the leaks about the Patrick Ho and CEFC investigation, that they concluded Ho decided to attend the CEFC event in New York after James Biden or another individual. What do you want to bet it's Hunter? It's got to be Hunter. It's got to be Hunter. But they're not going to say that because Hunter's undercover. James Biden or another individual likely told Ho, relying on information provided by a private investigator. That's ignominious. Is that the word? Ignominious? No. That's not what the word I'm looking for. That's whatever. It doesn't. That's non-specific. I'm looking for a word that means non-specific. That's non-specific. That it was safe for Ho to return to the United States. During their investigation, FBI interviewed a retired U.S. Secret Service agent who told them that James Biden reached out to him in November 2017 with a request to determine whether there was an arrest warrant for Ho. The retired U.S. Secret Service agent provided the FBI case team with an email communication from James Biden to the retired U.S. agent dated November 12th, 2017, with the subject line, reply, new case I need ASAP, I'm in Hong Kong, followed by, have info on an individual I need background on one specific issue, very timely, thanks, Jim. Please call. Based on a review of his own telephone records, the retired U.S. Secret Service agent told FBI agents that phone calls he had with James Biden between November 12th through November 14th, 2017, so that's just prior to Ho's arrest, related to this email request. According to the FBI report of its October 25th, 2021 interview with that retired U.S. Secret Service agent, that agent had told FBI agents that when he and James Biden discussed the request over the phone, James Biden said that, quote, we have information from China that Ho may be arrested, and that Ho wanted to travel to the U.S., but was concerned about potential warrants for his arrest. The retired agent told the FBI agents that James Biden provided Ho's biographical details, and that the agent then recruited another retired U.S. Secret Service agent, that's going to be Agent 2, who had a private investigation business to help him perform online database searches, according to text messages between November 12th and November 14th. And here is one of the messages, 11:02 a.m. Our client has a person who may have an active warrant out on him. He is a foreign-born person. I'm going to get the info shortly. The client is very interested in this and anxious to know. I will send the info as soon as I get. Our client is traveling overseas now. They send back Ho's biographical details, and it says possibly 3 Chinese and 1 Israeli on the warrant. So that's going to be Ho, maybe Jianming, Zhang. There's another one called like Zhao or something, and then Gao Luft. Those are the people with CFC that Hunter had his connections with, or that would be at issue here. During his FBI interview, the Agent 1 told the FBI agents that after he and Agent 2 completed their search, Agent 1 informed James Biden that they did not find an active arrest warrant for Patrick Ho. According to retired U.S. Secret Service Agent 1, he also told James Biden that because arrest warrants are sensitive, negative database searches did not necessarily mean that a warrant did not exist. During his March 2019 proffer, Target 3, Gal Luft, told the FBI and SDNY prosecutors that Ho sent Gal Luft a text message on November 15th stating words to the effect that, quote, people came and went, see you on 11/17, indicating that Ho had decided he would go to the U.S. and expected to see Gal Luft while there. Target 3, Gal Luft, told investigators that he continued to believe that Ho should be more cautious. Good stuff. By the way, about Hunter being retained by Patrick Ho for $1 million. It was $1 million retainer for Hunter Biden to be his attorney after he got arrested. Again, the Chinese operating the way they do, reaching out to the most politically influential people that they have contacts with. And so they reached out to Hunter because, after all, his dad is former vice president. And they got these other business dealings in, which they haven't paid the Bidens for. They haven't invested in the shell companies like they agreed to yet. But $1 million to be Patrick Ho's attorney, which really was to be Patrick Ho's influential political person. It wasn't for Hunter. It was for Hunter's name and the political influence that the Bidens could possibly have is what Patrick Ho is hoping, right? But Hunter's not even licensed to be a lawyer in New York. He's not licensed to practice law in New York. And media on the right will say, see, you see how crooked this is? Hunter's not even licensed to practice in New York. And they pair it around, or they circulate around this message where Hunter says that he's authorized to represent Patrick Ho, and says something like, I'm the authorized representative of Patrick Ho. And let me see, where is it? Here's the attorney engagement letter, or here's highlights from it. Right? Did they link the actual letter here? I feel like they did, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was in the Just the News article that they had it. So anyway, what I was going to say is that Hunter is not licensed to be it. So what does he do? There's this letter. They keep on showing this email where Hunter says, I am authorized as the representative. There it is. I am authorized by Dr. Ho as his attorney to do so. But they don't usually, when they show this segment right here, the people showing it don't tell you what it's about, or the email chain that it occurs in the middle of. And what it occurs in the middle of is an email exchange between Paul Krieger and Hunter Biden and Edward Kim and Nick Lewin. And it's a letter to Hunter from Paul saying, Hunter, we're back in our offices and are hoping to speak to you, preferably in person this afternoon. Do you have time to meet? And then another one from Edward Kim, who is a recently retired DOJ prosecutor. Pretty common thing of prosecutors flipping to be defense attorneys, right? And defense attorneys going to be prosecutors. But there's big money to be made if you're like a federal prosecutor and then you leave being a federal prosecutor and then become a defense attorney. Pretty common thing. And there's money to be made because people look at you and they're like, oh, this guy used to be a prosecutor for DOJ. He knows how they work. I'm going to pay him extra to be my defense attorney because he knows how federal prosecutions work. And it makes sense. Who better? Who better to take on a federal prosecution than a former federal prosecutor? Or who better to be a federal prosecutor than a former federal defense attorney? Right? Anyway, so it says, Hunter, Dr. Ho's numerical identifier has appeared after he'd been arrested, which means that we can now visit him at the MDC or the MCCC or MCC. We can plan to meet outside the facility at 8:15 a.m. Hunter, we have found out where Dr. Ho is being held. We ideally would like to see him first thing in the morning. We would like to speak with you first. We tried calling your cell and hotel room. We'll also send you a text message. This is a common thing where people are constantly trying to get in touch with Hunter, and he's AOL. AOL. He's AWOL. AOL. We have found where Dr. Ho is being held. Please let us know when you're free. Hi, Hunter. If you have a few minutes tonight, we should hop on a call to update you. Blah, blah, blah. Discuss next steps. Hunter finally sends them a reply. He gets all these emails from them starting at 1 o'clock, 1:17 p.m. 5 hours later, Hunter replies to them and says, working on it. That's it. It says working on it. I'm like, what? And actually, was it a day later? I don't know. They're really wanting to work on it. Anyway, so, wait a minute. I'm looking at these backwards. All right. I goofed up. I'm reading them from top to bottom, and I should read them from bottom to top, unless they're mixed up. Now I'm going to check and make sure they're in order. Okay, they are. All right. So what this was is that it still remains that they're all trying to get in contact with Hunter, and Hunter's not replying. So that's still all the thing. In fact, it's worse now because more than a day went by and he didn't reply. I just now looked at the dates. That was actually from November 18th, he tells them, and then November 19th, he still hasn't replied to them about meeting with them. All right, anyway. So what this is about, him saying this email where he says, I'm authorized on behalf of Dr. Ho to engage your law firm, is that Hunter gets $1 million from Patrick Ho to be his attorney. Patrick Ho probably doesn't even know that Hunter's not licensed to be an attorney in New York. Maybe not. He doesn't even know that that's a thing in the U.S. where you have to be licensed to be an attorney on a per state basis. Hunter is reaching out to them to ask them to represent Ho. He never had any look. Patrick Ho was arrested within 24 hours of Patrick Ho being arrested and him calling up James Biden and sending out this letter, this agreement right here, agreeing to retain Hunter for $1 million on behalf of Ho, the deputy chairman of CEFC. Within 24 hours of that happening, Hunter is messaging the law firm of Edward Kim, which is less than 2 months old, to authorize them to represent Ho. That's what this is about right here. And that's never explained in right side media. That's the whole nature of this email exchange. And to me, that changes things because he's trying to get, he knows he could be called here. Just like Hunter's name coming up in that investigation, right side media tries to portray it as Hunter should have been charged. That's what they're trying to get people to, that's what they're implying, and that's what they're trying to get the audience to infer, is that Hunter Biden should have been charged either instead of Patrick Ho or along with Patrick Ho. But that's not the case. Hunter was a asset. It's because of the Bidens that Patrick Ho came back to the U.S. and then got arrested. Or at least it's part of why he came back. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. I'm about to run out of time for this recording, and I'm going to have to I have to come back to it here in just a bit because I got some stuff I got to go do. Some dad stuff. Yeah, we're at the factual summary. We're going to keep going through this document because McGonigal is so tied to so many things. I want to go through this document and I want to go through Dawson's thread right here. But it's worth going through the document first and then jumping to Dawson's thread. And we're going to end on a real high note with that because it wraps up so many threads. That's the plan. That's the plan for this, guys. Okay. All right, background on CEFC investigation and discovery of the leak of sensitive non-public case information. According to FBI case team, the CEFC investigation was a major multi-year investigation for FBI's New York Counterintelligence Division, the one McGonigal was in charge of, involving bribery, violations of Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and money laundering related to CEFC's activities, including at the United Nations in New York City. Ho was the head of the CEFC NGO, an entity based in Hong Kong and Virginia that held special consultative status with the United Nations. The investigation uncovered evidence that Ho used CEFC NGO's special consultative status to develop contacts with government officials in Africa and attempt to bribe them, and in connection with one such scheme did in fact bribe a government official via wire transfers through New York in exchange for unfair business advantages for CEFC China. FBI, so that's the larger CEFC conglomerate, or the larger component of it. FBI New York and SDNY U.S. Attorney's Office also investigated whether Ho and Gal Luft had committed other offenses, including arms trafficking, yes, they had, and IEEPA sanctions violations. They had also violated those. The existence of the case was known only to a limited number of government personnel, principally individuals within the FBI and the DOJ, including McGonigal. According to the supervisory special agent who supervised the investigation, he provided McGonigal with regular briefings and updates on the case. In or about July and August 2017, SDNY U.S. attorneys and FBI New York have prepared draft criminal complaints charging up to 5 individuals in connection with the investigation. Notice this investigation would have begun during the Obama admin because DOJ has not been wholly corrupt and neither has the FBI. There's been a swamp draining probably hundreds, if not thousands, of law and order, justice-minded, criminal targeting, just absolutely aggressive and exactly the right kind of people that you would want in your FBI and DOJ who have been working very hard to drain the swamp and to take on corruption. And they were doing that, but there were other swamp creatures and bad guys within the FBI and DOJ also who were thwarting them, which is how we started this segment, right? Talking about how that stuff is being cleaned up. And McGonigal was maybe the worst among them. There might be some others that are just as bad or worse. I'm thinking of McCabe primarily. But they're not several tiers apart. They're on the same tier or one tier apart, right? Right. They were a draft criminal complaint charging up to 5 individuals in connection with it. So that'd be Ho, Gal Luft, at least one Senegal national, and one Chinese national. That's probably Zhang or Yi Jianming. At the time, the investigation was entirely covert, and the draft complaints and intended charges were treated as law enforcement sensitive, which is a designation indicating the information was compiled for law enforcement purposes and must be safeguarded and protected against unauthorized disclosure due to its sensitivity. On November 16, 2017, a sealed complaint was sworn out charging 2 of the 5 individuals, Ho and the Senegal national, both of whom were outside the United States at the time, with bribery and money laundering offenses, and warrants were issued for their arrest. 2 days later, Ho and the Senegal national were arrested upon their arrivals to the United States. At this time, according to Case Agent 1, FBI New York also intended to seek a search warrant for Gal Luft's cell phone and residence, but Gal Luft did not return to the United States when expected and never returned. despite being a U.S. citizen and resident of Maryland. During his OIG interview, FBI Case Agent 1 told us that he found the movements of the investigative targets in the summer of 2017 strange at the time. But it was not until Gal Luft, during his proffer in Belgium in March 2019, told investigators that he and Ho had received information from the CEFC China chairman in the case in August of 2017, so that'd be Jianming or Zhang, I think it's going to be Jianming, about the anticipated arrest that the case team had evidence of a leak of confidential case information. Specifically, Gal Luft told investigators that on August 14th, 2017, he and Ho met with the chairman in Hong Kong, and the chairman told them that he had learned that U.S. authorities had obtained arrest warrants for individuals involved with CEFC, including Ho, 2 other Chinese nationals, and a 4th person of Jewish or African descent. Gal Luft believed he was potentially the 4th person, according to Target 3. Gal Luft believed he was the 4th person. According to Gal Luft, during the August 14th, 2017 meeting, the chairman warned Ho that he should not travel to the United States until the charges against him were resolved. According to Gal Luft, Ho and the chairman had not been getting along at the time of this meeting, and Ho told Gal Luft after the meeting that he believed the chairman was jealous of him and had fabricated the information about the anticipated arrest to keep Ho outside the U.S. However, Gal Luft told investigators that when he met Ho again in October, he cautioned Ho to take the matter seriously and not rush back to the U.S. Specific details the chairman provided to Gal Luft and Ho in August 2017 about the anticipated arrest of multiple individuals associated with CEFC and the nationality or ethnicity of the then planned defendants, although not entirely accurate, closely tracked the draft complaints at the time and would have been known only to a limited number of individuals with access to the confidential law enforcement files. According to Case Agent 1, at the time of Gal Luft's proffer in March 2019, Luft could not have known that the government was contemplating in August 2017 arresting Ho and other individuals, as that information was never made public. Therefore, FBI investigators believed at the time of the proffer that confidential information about the contemplated charges must have been obtained by someone in U.S. law enforcement who shared it, likely through an intermediary or intermediaries, with the chairman or his associates. However, investigators did not know who that law enforcement source was. That knowledge came later, when investigators focused on Person B, Dorian Ducka, the former Albanian government official who had become a regional advisor for CEFC China and Europe, and McGonigal's communications with him came to light. Okay, I'm back. Where were we? McGonigal's relationship with Person B, Dorian Ducka. Okay, now remember, the FBI was investigating CEFC, not starting in 2017 or 2016. CEFC had been under investigation for a long time. They became aware of it way back during the Obama years. And so this investigation that had narrowed in on these 5 individuals connected to CEFC activities, it goes way back. And that'll become even more important later on when we crack this thing open at the end of this episode. But we're going to go through the IG report. All right, McGonigal's relationship with Person B. At times relevant herein, Person B was a consultant to foreign governments and businesses on international investments, and in addition to his work for CEFC China, Dorian Ducka was a non-governmental advisor to the Prime Minister of Albania. In April 2017, McGonigal asked Person A, let me make sure. This footnote here, where did this footnote come up? Okay. In April 2017, McGonigal asked Person A in McGonigal's DDC indictment to introduce him to Person B, Dorian Ducka. According to the FBI report documenting Person A's FBI interview in January 2022, Person A told investigators that he was first introduced to McGonigal in the spring of 2017 by a former FBI special agent who was FBI, and right here, this is the footnote. The former FBI agent was indicted on charges of conspiracy, federal program bribery, and honest services wire fraud in connection with a corruption case unrelated to the subject matter of this report. According to court records, the government is no longer pursuing charges and filed an information charging the former FBI agent with one count of knowingly and willfully facilitating an express or implied promise to make a prohibited campaign contribution by a foreign national. Who is this person? The court recently secured or scheduled a plea agreement hearing. Many years earlier, the former FBI agent pled guilty and was sentenced to probation in an unrelated case for criminally accessing a sensitive FBI database for personal purposes. This isn't the guy out of LA, is it? Buma? Who is this? I need to put a pin in this. Figure out who this agent is. To make a prohibited campaign contribution by a foreign national. Okay, I believe I found it. I believe it's Mark Rossini, who's somewhat kind of infamous because he's popped up with all this. He was tracking Al Qaeda, and he's been associated with 9/11. He was tracking some of the 9/11 hijackers and whatnot, but he also got in trouble back in 2008 for accessing FBI records more than 40 times, and he was sentenced to probation. He resigned and was sentenced to probation and community service way back then in 2008. But then in 2022, he was charged with conspiracy, bribery, honest services wire fraud, and having promised Puerto Rico's then governor money to her re-election campaign in 2020, which is exactly what this says. Conspiracy, federal program bribery, honest services wire fraud, corruption case unrelated to this, a promise to make an illegal campaign contribution. And this right here, according to this IG report, the court recently scheduled a plea agreement hearing. Many years earlier, that agent pled guilty and was sentenced to probation in an unrelated case, accessing the FBI services, FBI database. So that matches up perfectly with Mark Rossini. Absolutely perfectly. And if that's not enough for you to connect it, check this out. Here is a photo of Dorian Ducka and Mark Rossini and Patrick Ho and Agron Neza, who is person A, and that's the name I've been trying to I've forgotten that's in here. Agron Neza, that's the Albanian guy. So that's way too many points of contact as far as the information goes to be all coincidence. So that's who this footnote is about right here. And what it's telling us is that in April of 2017, McGonigal asked Person A, Agron Neza, in McGonigal's DDC indictment to introduce him to Dorian Ducka. According to the FBI report documenting Agron Neza's FBI interview in January 2022, Neza told investigators that he was first introduced to McGonigal in the spring of 2017 by a former FBI special agent. And that, I mean, it's got to be Mark Rossini. I mean, the swamp is big, but the swamp ain't that big. All these, you keep crossing paths with all these people, keep coming across the same characters, you know? All right. According to Agron Neza, after his initial introduction, Neza had dinner with McGonigal, during which McGonigal asked him whether he knew Dorian Ducka, because Ducka's name had come up as an associate of CEFC. Neza told investigators that McGonigal did not mention the FBI's investigation or how McGonigal heard of Dukkha, and that Neza did not know whether the FBI was investigating CEFC. According to Neza, during their dinner, he called Dukkha in McGonigal's presence, advised Dukkha that he was presently with the FBI, so that's probably this dinner right here that this photo was taken at, which makes you wonder about this photo, who took it and for what purpose. McGonigal's text message indicates that the meeting between McGonigal and Dukkha occurred at a restaurant in New York City on April 10th, 2017. FBI email communications indicate that on the morning of April 10th, McGonigal requested a briefing on Dukkha from his FBI subordinates. And Case Agent 1 met with McGonigal later that day. Case Agent 1 understood at the time that McGonigal wanted information on Dukkha because McGonigal had plans to have dinner with him. During his OIG interview, Case Agent 1 told us that although he did not recall his exact words, he conveyed to McGonigal that Dukkha was a concern, quote unquote, for the case team. Case Agent 1 told us that Person B, Dukkha himself, was not a target of the CEFC investigation at the time because the FBI did not have evidence connecting him to Ho's criminal activities. However, Case Agent 1 said that he conveyed to McGonigal that as a very close associate of Ho and someone paid by CEFC China to help accomplish CEFC China's objectives in Europe, Dukkha could have been involved in the activities the FBI was investigating. According to Case Agent 1 at the end of this briefing, McGonigal asked Case Agent 1 whether a meeting with Dukkha was a good idea. Case Agent 1 told us that he was shocked, quote unquote, at the time that McGonigal would ask this question because Case Agent 1 believed his briefing had provided more than enough information for any FBI agent to conclude that a meeting with Dukkha was not a good idea for the investigation. Case Agent 1 said that he did not feel comfortable telling an SAC, a special agent in charge, what to do or not do, and ultimately deferred to McGonigal on whether McGonigal should meet with Person B. The supervisory special agent told us that he had separate private conversations with McGonigal in McGonigal's office during which he advised McGonigal not to meet Dukkha. According to the supervisory special agent, McGonigal stated that he wanted to tell Dukkha about the FBI's investigation because McGonigal thought it would be good for relations and possibly encourage Dukkha to provide information. The supervisory special agent told us that he did not recall exactly what McGonigal said that he wanted to share with Person B about the investigation, but the supervisory special agent was left with the impression that McGonigal wanted to share information about the arrest the FBI was considering at the time, or more generally, that CEFC and related individuals were bad guys or in trouble. According to the supervisory special agent, he counseled McGonigal against telling Person B about the investigation. However, despite this conversation and Case Agent 1's briefing, McGonigal did meet Dukkha in person on April 10th as he had planned. Footnote: the FBI report documenting the FBI's September 15th, 2020 interview with that supervisory special agent states that McGonigal wanted to tell Dukkha about the pending arrest, quote unquote. During his OIG interview, the supervisory special agent said that pending arrest was his impression of what McGonigal wanted to share with Dukkha, but not necessarily McGonigal's exact words. As noted above, the supervisory special agent stated during his OIG interview that whatever McGonigal's exact words, McGonigal gave him the impression that McGonigal wanted to share information about the arrest or generally about CEFC being bad guys or being in trouble. He wanted to warn him. He wanted to warn him. Why would he want to do that? Well, he says it'd be good for relations with that country, but really what he means is good for relations between him and Dukkha, because later he would get paid $250,000 left in the trunk of a car. I don't remember if it was $250,000 left. I don't think it was $250,000 left all at once. I think it was $30,000 to $50,000 in cash left in the trunk of a car. Right, according to the FBI report documenting Person B's interview on December 15th, 2021, Dukkha told investigators that during their April 10th, 2017 meeting, McGonigal asked Dukkha questions about Ho, CEFC, and CEFC China chairman. According to Person B, McGonigal's questions were discreet, and McGonigal did not tell him much about his work for the FBI. Dukkha said that he thought McGonigal was possibly assessing him as a potential confidential source. According to Ducka, McGonigal did not ask Ducka to do anything specifically related to CEFC, but person A, Agron Neza, informed Ducka that McGonigal wanted to stay close to Ducka because CEFC was important to the U.S. government. Ducka said that he had the impression that the U.S. government was conducting a threat assessment of CEFC. During a subsequent proffer interview on October 12, 2022, Ducka told the FBI case team and SDNY prosecutors that McGonigal had given him his FBI business card during this introductory meeting and had asked him questions about his work, his clients, and other topics. According to his proffer, Ducka told McGonigal that he worked for CEFC China and was not paid by Ho, who worked for CEFC NGO. And they also talked about the chairman, Jianming. 2 days after McGonigal's meeting with Ducka on April 12, 2017, McGonigal wrote to a business associate, Sergei Shestakov, the guy he was indicted along with in the SDNY and who recently pled guilty back in June, that he had just secured a very good contract in the Albanian government for future business development, always working towards the future, quote unquote. The January 2023 indictment, this is from the footnote, against McGonigal obtained by the SDNY charged Shestakov as McGonigal's co-conspirator in providing services to and receiving secret payments from Deripaska for making false statements to the FBI. In June 2025, Shestakov pled guilty. So he looped him in. This indicates that, to me, McGonigal is working for Deripaska through Sergei Shestakov, who was also an interpreter that was hired by DOJ at times. And they're being paid by Deripaska. And now McGonigal has just looped in the Albanian government, which is a very corrupt government. I mean, Albania is basically a narco state. And this is another way for them to make money together. Two weeks after the meeting on April 24, 2017, McGonigal sent an email to Supervisory Special Agent providing a little background regarding this person, Ducka. McGonigal did not explain why he decided to meet Ducka, but McGonigal said that he and Ducka discussed, quote, mutual topics of interest. McGonigal said that he inquired about Person B's position with CEFC, and that Person B told him that he, Person B, was a regional advisor for Europe, focused on Berlin, and that he earned approximately $50,000 per month from CEFC. McGonigal also said that he gave his contact information to Ducka and expected to meet him again. McGonigal did not note that he shared any information with Person B about the CEFC investigation, but it seems from what he said here, what Ducka said here about his impression was the United States was conducting a threat assessment on CEFC. He gave him information, at least enough for him to conclude that that was occurring. Two weeks after the meeting on April 24, 2017, McGonigal sent an email. Okay, I just read that. McGonigal had several more meetings and conversations with Ducka over the next several months. McGonigal met with Ducka several times in New York City, including one instance in which Ducka left a family vacation in Florida to meet McGonigal, Agron Neza, and the former FBI agent, that would be Rossini, in June 2017, and another instance in which Ducka introduced McGonigal to a former government official of Romania. Ducka also hosted McGonigal in Albania in September and November 2017. During the September 2017 trip, Ducka arranged for a private dinner between McGonigal and the Prime Minister of Albania, and McGonigal met again with the Prime Minister during his second trip to Albania months later. On September 9th, this is a footnote, September 9th, 2017, McGonigal texted an image of himself with the Prime Minister to a personal friend, and texted another personal friend that the Prime Minister was reforming justice in Albania and that this presented plenty of opportunities, quote unquote. I wonder if that was to Alison Guerrera, his mistress. And a person who went to the FBI in DC about McGonigal's cash side jobs. McGonigal did not disclose his ongoing contacts with Person B to the FBI case team. According to the supervisory special agent, McGonigal would frequently ask for case updates, including who was going to be arrested and when, all the while not disclosing to the team that he was continuing to meet with Ducka. McGonigal also did not report his ongoing contacts with Ducka, a foreign national, to the FBI, or properly report his foreign travel with Ducka, as he was required to do. These reporting violations from this footnote were included in the indictment in D.C. There was also a trip to Vienna, Austria, for a law enforcement interview. Okay. McGonigal's leaks of sensitive, non-public case information to Ducka. The June 2017 leak and subsequent events. During Ducka's October 12, 2022 proffer interview, Ducka told the FBI case team and SDNY prosecutors that he left a personal family vacation with family and friends in Florida to attend a dinner on June 12, 2017 with McGonigal, Neza, and Rossini in New York City. According to Ducka, while at the restaurant, Ducka and McGonigal were briefly separated from Neza and Rossini. And McGonigal told Ducka something to the effect of, quote, "We are looking into them," or "we are going after them." Ducka said that he understood "we" to be the FBI and "them" to be CEFC China or CEFC NGO. According to Ducka, McGonigal did not further explain what he meant by this statement, but Ducka took from the statement that the FBI was scrutinizing CEFC China or CEFC NGO. Ducka told investigators that he was disturbed by this information, which he said confirmed his suspicion that the FBI was examining those entities, CEFC. Ducka said that he did not recall whether he responded to McGonigal's statement. At the time of this leak, the FBI and SDNY's prosecution investigation of CEFC, Ho, and others was entirely covert, and knowledge of it was limited to a small number of government personnel. The following day, June 13th, Person B, Ducka, traveled to D.C. to meet with Ho, who was attending a conference there. Ooh, I think I remember this conference. I think I remember something about this conference and Luft being there and Woolsey. I could be mistaken, but I think this might be the conference with the Center for Strategic whatever that Woolsey, Swamp Creature, former FBI or CIA director James Woolsey, and Gal Luft set up, CSIS or whatever it was. Ducka said that he deliberately used FBI officials, plural, to obscure that McGonigal was his source. According to Ducka, he was skeptical of the information, or Ho was skeptical of the information, and believed the U.S. government was instead targeting the CEFC China chairman, which they also were. Ducka told investigators he took a train ride to D.C. to meet with Ho for about 30 to 60 minutes over coffee before returning to Florida to join his family and friends. Ducka told investigators that this meeting was pre-planned and not in reaction to the information McGonigal told him the day before, and that he prefers to meet with people in person. However, he also stated that he believed the matters he discussed with Ho were too sensitive to speak about on the telephone. According to Ducka, McGonigal did not tell him whether Ho was under any kind of FBI surveillance. It turned out he was, guys. It turned out he was. There was a FISA on Patrick Ho. All right. During his October 2022 proffer interview, Ducka told investigators that he told Ho that the FBI might also be looking at an Israeli person in connection with CEFC China or CEFC NGO, but Person B did not know the identity of the Israeli. He and Ho discussed whether the Israeli could be Target 3. Indeed, he was. Or another Israeli businessman who was friends with the chairman. Oh, so there's two of them. Target 3 was in D.C. attending the same conference. Okay, yeah, I'm thinking I'm right about this. And Ho introduced Ducka to Gal Luft, whom he had previously never met. According to Ducka did not mention McGonigal to Gal Luft during this encounter. 2 days later, on June 15, 2017, Gal Luft left the United States and never returned. Although Ducka said he could not remember when he did so, Ducka told investigators that he believed he informed McGonigal that he had shared with Ho the information McGonigal disclosed to him on June 12th. Ducka said he did not recall McGonigal's reaction to learning that Ducka passed the information to Ho, a primary investigative target. A few weeks after Person B's conversations with McGonigal and Ho, Ducka was summoned from Germany to meet personally with the CEFC China chairman in France. According to the FBI report documenting his October 22 proffer interview, Ducka told investigators that this request to meet with the chairman was sudden and out of the blue, which is corroborated by Ducka's travel records and emails between Gal Luft and Ho approximately 1 week later. This FBI report further states that Ducka advised investigators that when he arrived at the meeting in France, which investigators determined occurred on July 19, 2017, he learned that he had been summoned to discuss the, quote, Ho situation. Oh, in different contexts, that's a funny line. The Ho situation. And that the chairman was bothered by the news that CEFC China or CEFC NGO had come under the U.S. government scrutiny. Although the chairman did not explain, Ducka surmised that Ho must have told the chairman about the information Ducka shared with Ho in Washington, D.C. a few weeks earlier. So it all goes back to McGonigal telling him. According to Ducka, the two discussed the potential outcomes of the FBI inquiry, which Ducka said he told the chairman could include harassment, interrogation, detention, or arrest. Ducka told investigators that his understanding and potential outcomes was based on his own assumptions and observations about how counterintelligence and criminal investigations are conducted. Redacted. On July 25th, 2017, Ho left the United States and did not return until his arrest on November 18th, 2017. McGonigal had spooked the FBI's targets, and he did so knowingly, intentionally, and he was probably paid to do so by Ducka. The whole point of McGonigal meeting with Ducka in the first place and befriending him or associating with him was so that there opportunities like that could arise so that he could get paid. The CEFC China chairman's warnings to investigative targets and McGonigal's request for case details from the FBI subordinate. On October 14, 2017, a few weeks after McGonigal's leak to Ducka in June 2017 described above, and before McGonigal's 2017 leak described in the next section, CEFC China chairman Jianming met with Ho and Gal Luft in Hong Kong. As described earlier, according to the FBI report documenting Gal Luft's proffer interview on March 28, 2019, when he was in Belgium. During this meeting, the chairman advised Ho and Gal Luft that U.S. authorities had obtained arrest warrants for approximately 4 people involved with CEFC, including Ho, 2 other Chinese nationals, and a 4th person of Jewish or African descent, and warned Ho that he should not travel to the U.S. At the time of this August 14th meeting, SDNY prosecutors and FBI in New York were contemplating charges but had not yet filed complaints or obtained arrest warrants. The FBI in New York investigated whether the chairman could have obtained information about arrest warrants from other sources and found no evidence. Based on the FBI New York's investigation, it appeared that the concept of arrest warrants likely came from the chairman's conversation with Ducka in France in July 2017 about the possible outcomes of the FBI investigation, which mean it came from Ducka, which mean it came from McGonigal. From August 19th through August 22nd, 2017, Ducka visited New York City and on a number of occasions met separately with McGonigal and the chairman, who was also visiting New York City. During his October 2022 proffer, Ducka told investigators that he and McGonigal had several discussions about CEFC and Ho during this visit. Ducka told investigators that he updated McGonigal on the chairman's movements and CEFC's China business plans. Ducka said that he thought he may also have told McGonigal that the chairman was in New York City at this time and that Ducka planned to meet with him. And then there's a redacted sentence here. Interesting. All right, according to Ducka, at some point during this trip, the chairman asked Ducka for the identity of the Israeli person who was being scrutinized by the FBI in connection with CEFC. In particular, the chairman wanted to know whether the Israeli was Ho's friend, Gal Luft, or someone else who was a friend of the chairman. Ducka told investigators he did not ask McGonigal specifically who the Israeli person was. According to Ducka, he only showed McGonigal a photo of the chairman's Israeli friend, and after McGonigal showed no reaction to the photo, Ducka assumed correctly that it was Target 3, Gal Luft, not the chairman's friend who was under scrutiny. On August 21st, 2017, the Monday after McGonigal attended a party with Ducka over the previous weekend, McGonigal sought to confirm through an FBI subordinate in FBI's Counterintelligence Division in New York the identity of the Israeli who was a target of the investigation. In particular, FBI records indicate that on August 21st, 2017, McGonigal sent an instant message to a subordinate, a coordinating supervisory special agent, asking, quote, "What was the Israeli's name, as it is not in my report?" To which the coordinating supervisor responded, Gal Luft. Based on our review of FBI's instant messages, it appears that McGonigal also asked this subordinate whether the case team intended to charge the chairman, because the subordinate sent McGonigal an instant message a few hours later stating the chairman was never an option to charge, although he is the chairman. He will not be part of the group. Once the special agent or supervisory special agent gets back to the office, I'll ask them for details. During an October 2022 interview with the subordinate case agent, the subordinate case agent told Case Agent 1 and Case Agent 2 that she did not remember these messages or any conversation she may have had with McGonigal. FBI New York and New York attorneys did not find evidence that McGonigal disclosed this information from the coordinating supervisory agent to Ducka. However, as described later in this report, McGonigal stated during his November 17, 2023 proffer interview that he did not recall whether he shared with Ducka the information he received from that coordinating supervisory special agent concerning the Israeli, and therefore left open the possibility that he did so. Further, McGonigal admitted to telling Person B at some point that there was a chance, quote unquote, that the chairman would be charged. During Ducka's October 2022 proffer interview, Ducka told investigators that he informed the chairman that Gal Luft was likely the Israeli under scrutiny. According to Ducka, the chairman expressed skepticism that the U.S. government was interested in CEFC. In response to the chairman challenging the accuracy of Ducka's information, Ducka said he disclosed McGonigal's identity to the chairman and showed him McGonigal's business card. November 2017 leak and subsequent events. On November 7th, 2017, Ducka received an invitation from Patrick Ho to attend a CEFC-sponsored event in New York on November 22nd. During his October 2022 proffer interview, Ducka told investigators that shortly after he received this invitation, Ducka asked McGonigal over the phone whether he should attend the event. Based on Ducka's email communications, the FBI case team determined that this cell phone call occurred November 9th, 2017, while Ducka was outside the United States, which, remember, they have a FISA on Patrick Ho at this time. According to Ducka, McGonigal responded to his question by telling him to stay in Albania and said something to the effect of, "We are ready for them," or "ready for action." Footnote. During his December 15th, 2021 FBI interview, Ducka told investigators that sometime before Ho's arrest on November 18th, 2017, McGonigal told him that the FBI planned to arrest several individuals connected to CEFC, including Ho, the CEFC chairman, China chairman, another Chinese national, and Gal Luft. Although this more specific information is consistent with what Gal Luft said during his March 2019 proffer interview, He told investigators the chairman passed on to Ho and Gal Luft on August 14, 2017, during Ducka's subsequent proffer. That Ducka did not repeat this statement, instead told investigators that McGonigal told them that we are ready for them or ready for action. So okay, so that's more specific from Ducka, and Gal Luft got a shorter version of that. It's still consistent with what Gal Luft was informed of and told the FBI later in March 2019 during that Belgium interview. But it's not as specific as what Ducka told them in December 2021. Okay. At this time, November 9th, 2017, at this time in the CEFC investigation, SDNY prosecutors and FBI in New York were planning to arrest Ho and a Senegal national. And November 16, 2017, a complaint was sworn out charging both of them with bribery and money laundering, and warrants were issued for their arrest. Ducka further stated that McGonigal did not ask him to share with anyone that the FBI was ready for them or ready for action. And Ducka assumed he should keep it to himself. Ducka said that he did not share this information with anyone at CEFC NGO or CEFC China. Something just got in my eye. Guessing an eyelash. During his March 2019 proffer, Gal Luft told investigators that given what he and Ho learned from CEFC about the pending arrest from the China chairman of CEFC, Ho was debating whether to return to the United States in November 2017 as he had previously planned. Let's see, and he did eventually return, of course, and was arrested. The FBI case team told us, based on the below described evidence the FBI New York obtained during its investigation of the leaks, that they concluded Ho decided to attend the event after James Biden or another individual likely told Ho that it was safe. And I read to you that part a little while ago. Okay. During his March 2019 proffer, Gal Luft told the FBI and New York prosecutors that Ho sent Gal Luft a text message. Sorry. Whatever I got in my eye was very scratchy. Okay. Okay. Prosecuted people came and went. See you on. Ho sent Gal Luft a text message on November 15th, 2017, stating words to the effect of that people came and went. See you on 11/17, indicating that Ho had decided to go. Hotel records reflect that James Biden was in Hong Kong on November 12, 2017, and made calls to the retired U.S. agent on that date from his hotel room phone. In testimony before the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, James Biden discussed his November 2017 travel to Hong Kong, and in connection with that travel, James Biden, also discussed his engagement of that retired U.S. agent. Does it say anything more about that? No, it just confirms that he did talk about that. Okay. Unlike Ho, Ducka decided not to return to the United States to attend the CEFC event. Instead, Ducka hosted McGonigal and Agron Neza in Albania in November 2017, which, as noted previously, was information McGonigal kept secret from the FBI. According to Ducka, while in Albania, Ducka received a call from an assistant to the chairman who informed Ducka about Ho's arrest. Ducka said that the chairman asked Ducka to travel to New York City to assist with the Ho situation. The Ho situation. Person B, Ducka, said that after he received his request, he asked McGonigal for guidance on whether he should return to New York. And McGonigal approved of the idea and asked Ducka to find out what discussions the chairman of CEFC was having and report back. During his October 2022 proffer interview, Ducka told investigators that after he arrived in New York on November 20th, 2017, he met with the chairman. Sometime after their meeting, Ducka received a call from the chairman's translator who informed Ducka that the FBI was at the chairman's New York City apartment, and the chairman wanted to know what he should do. Person B said that he, McGonigal, that he called for McGonigal for instruction, and McGonigal told Ducka that the chairman should cooperate. A message Ducka relayed to the chairman through a translator. Later, on November 22nd, 2017, McGonigal returned to the United States, and Ducka met him at Newark Airport. According to Ducka, he recounted to McGonigal the discussions with the chairman. Throughout this time, in the days before and after Ho's arrest, McGonigal was receiving case updates from the FBI in New York, including that the case team was attempting to locate the chairman to serve him with subpoenas. According to Case Agent 1, they were unable to locate the chairman, and Case Agent 1 waited for hours in the lobby of the chairman's apartment building, only to learn years later from Ducka that McGonigal was in communication with Ducka about the chairman in real time and giving him advice to the chairman through Ducka. Giving advice to the chairman. Wow. Wow. So the people working under McGonigal were trying to gather evidence on this case and prosecute and meet with these people. And McGonigal was more in touch with them than they were, with the targets of the investigation, than the actual case agents were. He was working against them. McGonigal never disclosed within the FBI that he had been in contact with Ducka during this time, that he knew Ducka had been meeting with the chairman in New York, or that person B had asked him for advice on behalf of the chairman. Wow. Wow. Dude, imagine that situation where how you would feel like the head of the FBI Counterintelligence Division is giving instruction to the CEFC chairman on how to handle the FBI trying to meet with him. And the FBI agents immediately under him are don't know that. God, this guy is a swamp. During his November 17, 2023 proffer to the OIG, he reminds me so much of McCabe. We're going to find out. I think we're going to find out stuff like this going on with Andrew McCabe and the Clintons. I think we will. Okay. November 17, 2023, exactly 5 years later, in the proffer to the OIG, FBI, and DC U.S. Attorney's Office about his relationship and conversations with Ducka, McGonigal eventually admitted he disclosed to Ducka that the FBI planned to arrest individuals within CEFC. He admitted to it. But he couldn't be charged for that because of the proffer. Criminal proceedings could not be brought against him based on this information he turned over. But there are exceptions not pertinent here, this says. During his proffer interview, McGonigal initially downplayed his relationship with Ducka, saying that he knew Ducka worked for individuals in China and Germany, but did not have direct knowledge of what Ducka did professionally. When he asked specifically about CEFC, McGonigal initially said that he did not have any substantive conversation with Ducka about CEFC and that he would not have asked Ducka questions about CEFC. He also said that his introductory meeting with Ducka was not based on person B's association with CEFC because McGonigal said he did not know Ducka was affiliated with CEFC. Lie. After McGonigal was shown text messages indicating that he knew Ducka was part of CEFC, as early as their very first introductory meeting, McGonigal acknowledged that the fact that, yeah, he did know that, but said he did not know the extent of Person B's position, of Ducka's position within CEFC. He also said that he did not recall the substance of his conversations. Memory problems, conversations that he said occurred more than once, but not frequently. After McGonigal was shown a text message between him and Agron Neza on April 10th, 2017, in which McGonigal asked Neza to think of topics to discuss with Ducka that would be of interest to McGonigal's quote-unquote mission. McGonigal said that he recalled that his mission with Ducka was to use him to provide information about CEFC. McGonigal said that Ducka had the potential to become a confidential human source for the FBI. Yeah. With respect to the FBI New York and SDNY investigation, McGonigal acknowledged that he had discussed the CEFC investigation with Ducka at some point, but he initially said that he did not recall when or what he told Ducka. However, McGonigal also said that Ducka would ask McGonigal for updates on the investigation. McGonigal would respond by saying, quote, "We would arrest these fucking people because of their conduct." McGonigal admitted making it perfectly clear to Ducka that, quote, "these people would be arrested," and that Ducka would be arrested too if he was involved. McGonigal said that he did not recall disclosing to Ducka who specifically would be arrested, but that he remembered discussing Ho and the CEFC China chairman with Ducka. McGonigal also said that although he did not recall their nationalities, he assumed everyone who would be arrested was of Chinese nationality. McGonigal told us during his proffer that he did not recall Ducka asking him whether the chairman was going to be arrested or which Israeli was going to be arrested. He said he did not recall why he asked an FBI subordinate for information about the Israeli associate with the investigation, or whether he gave this information to Ducka or anyone else. Eventually, during his proffer, McGonigal acknowledged that he told both Ducka and Agron Neza that the FBI was going to arrest individuals associated with the CEFC. Not just that they would arrest them, but that they were going to. McGonigal said that Ducka told him that Ho was expected to travel to the U.S. McGonigal at some point told Ducka that Ho would be arrested if he did so. McGonigal further acknowledged that Person B asked whether the chairman was going to be charged, and McGonigal told Ducka that there was a chance, quote unquote. According to McGonigal, he was motivated by bravado in disclosing information to Ducka about the CEFC investigation and anticipated arrest. According to McGonigal, his attitude was, quote, "Fuck them. If they were breaking the law in the U.S., I wanted them to know they could be arrested." However, he said that he should not have gone as far as he did. According to McGonigal, he did not disclose information about the investigation to Ducka to harm the investigation. He said that he had a relationship with Ducka and trusted him, and that this is why he would have disclosed the arrest to Ducka. According to McGonigal, his disclosures did not harm the investigation because the case, quote, "was a win." McGonigal made conflicting statements about whether he knew Ducka gave Ho information about the CEFC investigation or anticipated arrest. Initially, McGonigal said that he did not know what Ducka did with the information McGonigal disclosed to him, but that he did not expect that Person B, Ducka, would inform individuals. Playing dumb. McGonigal told us that Ducka did in fact inform him that Ducka told Ho about the CEFC investigation and Ho's anticipated arrest. McGonigal acknowledged that he continued his conversations with Ducka even after Ducka had violated his trust. And that's because it really didn't happen. He was being paid to provide information. That was the whole game. He's pretending the game was something else, and it wasn't. As described above, Ducka received an invitation from Ho, blah, blah, blah. They told him to stay in Albania. McGonigal told us, the investigators, that he asked Ducka about Ho following the arrest. And according to McGonigal, Ducka informed him that CEFC was surprised and panicked after the arrest, even though McGonigal had alerted them that it was going to happen. And then when it did happen, they were in communication with McGonigal of how to avoid cooperation with the FBI. Finally, McGonigal told us that he did not think he had an obligation to share his conversations with Ducka with the FBI case team because he did not think those conversations harmed the investigation. BS. He also claimed that he partially told the case team about his conversation with Ducka, but just not the full extent of them. Analysis and findings. Based on the evidence described in this report, we determined that while he was SAC entrusted with overseeing FBI's New York counterintelligence program, McGonigal engaged in a scheme that obstructed an important multi-year criminal investigation under his supervision and compromised the integrity of the FBI. During Ducka's proffer in October of 2022, Ducka told the FBI case team and SDNY prosecutors that McGonigal told him in June 2017 that they were being looked into and that they were being gone after by the FBI and the prosecutors. In November 2017, McGonigal told Ducka that the FBI was ready for them, which was just days before the arrest warrants were issued for Ho and the co-conspirator. Although this information alone would have been more than enough to obstruct or impede the CEFC investigation, we concluded that McGonigal's own admissions and other evidence demonstrates that McGonigal gave Ducka even more specific information than Ducka acknowledged during his proffer. So as much as Ducka told the FBI he received from McGonigal, there was even more. And the FBI knows that. And so does the OIG. As described earlier in this report, Ducka stated during his October 2022 proffer that the FBI met with Ho in person on June 13th. Blah, blah, blah. This is just basically a repeat of everything we just read. Although the full extent of the harm from McGonigal's leaks of sensitive investigative information to foreign subjects and targets will likely never be fully known, we determined that the impact of McGonigal's conduct on the CEFC investigation, which was a significant FBI criminal investigation, was substantial. Indeed, it was McGonigal's June 2017 leak to Ducka that led to the CEFC China chairman discussing the Ho situation with Ducka in France in July 2017 and meeting with Ho and Gao Luft in Hong Kong in August 2017 to warn both of them. And if not for James Biden communicating to Patrick Ho it was safe to go, nobody ever would have been arrested. But of course, we're not supposed to, those of us on the right aren't supposed to acknowledge that the Bidens are good for anything, are we? Those narrative games polluting our minds and preventing us from seeing what's right in front of us. Then Gao Luft never came to the U.S., but now he's been arrested, and I hope to see him in a courtroom very soon. And I hope to follow a Gao Luft case very soon. And I hope to see a number of people on the right recant their praise of Gao Luft and apologize to MAGA that they propped this guy up and propped up his allegations against the Bidens, fell for his lies. But I don't expect to see that at all. I don't think that'll happen at all because I never see that. I never see that. I never see these people on the right who tell these lies. And I'll be kind. I'll be kind because I want people to be kind to me where I've changed my mind or where I've said, you know what, I shouldn't have bought into that stuff. I can't think off the top of my head. I can't think of a time where they've come out and said, you know what, I fell for that and I was wrong. And here's what I think now. Surely there's some examples of it. I can't think of it right now. And even if there are some examples, it's exceedingly rare. Exceedingly rare that they do that because it's all about the clickbait. And it's all about promoting the narrative and shoring up people's idea of who the boogeymen are, who the bad guys are. And it's not really about getting to the truth, getting to the facts. Okay. This is all a restatement of things we already read. There's a redaction here again for some of the consequences that McGonigal's failures to inform the FBI case team of his conversation with Person B had on the investigation. And it says tangible consequences. And then I'm guessing it goes on in this redacted part to tell you what they are, but we don't know what it is. In addition, McGonigal knew the agents under his supervision were expending time and resources they were spending time and resources to locate the chairman on at least November 19th and November 20th, 2017, and did not know where the chairman was until November 22nd. But at the same time that was going on, McGonigal was aware that Ducka was in New York and knew where the chairman was. And he knew that Ducka was in New York to meet with the chairman. So it's not stated here, guys, but this is, I think you can infer from this redacted portion and from these other conversations and what McGonigal was doing, and that he was advising through Ducka, advising the chairman on how to handle the FBI being at the chairman's apartment looking for him and trying to get documents from him. And also they were going to arrest him. That Charles McGonigal foiled the FBI's plan to arrest Patrick Ho. Well, I'm sorry, to arrest Gal Luft and to arrest the CEFC chairman. Who Hunter Biden called, Hunter Biden called Ho the quote unquote fucking spy chief of China. But the text message can kind of be read to be talking about the chairman, Jianming. There is no question that McGonigal knew that his actions were both wrongful and likely to negatively impact the investigation. By the way, just hit me. You know, another thing that is said by the right, that the FBI buried the Hunter Biden laptop and they didn't want to look at it and they tried to pretend it was Russian disinformation and all of these things. We just learned that the investigation into CEFC, in which Hunter was functioning as an asset to, was highly, highly compartmentalized. So, random computer store guy turning up with Hunter Biden's laptop, which then contains information related to the CEFC and all of that stuff, it's going to wind up in a highly compartmentalized, after it's been verified, it's going to wind up in a highly compartmentalized investigation itself. The problem is that not everything on the Hunter Biden laptop is legit, which is why they weren't entirely wrong to say there was Russian disinformation on it. What was wrong is that all these 50 intelligence people, former intelligence officials, coming out and calling it Russian disinformation or propaganda or whatever, and pretending it wasn't Hunter's laptop and all of these things. But what's really bad about that is that it got people arguing over the wrong thing and became this political football when it was a trove of both misinformation and false information, but also real information that was of interest to the FBI, such as of interest to this investigation here. But if we let ourselves get too wrapped up in the commentariat world of the left and the right, you don't get to have those, or it's discouraged having those nuanced thoughts about it. Okay. Although McGonigal attempted to minimize his motivations as mere bravado, the evidence showed that McGonigal's actions were motivated by his desire to protect Ducka, a potentially lucrative business connection for him upon retiring from the FBI. In fact, Ducka became a valuable partner for McGonigal and hosted McGonigal overseas, participating with McGonigal in meetings with other foreign nationals. Some of their activities together related to Albania are part of the indictment out of D.C. The evidence showed that McGonigal knew Ducka was paid $50,000 a month by CEFC. An investigation in McGonigal thought, hey, I'm going to get me some of that. Think about it. McGonigal knows that Ducka is being paid $50,000 a month by CEFC. How much? So he has to think to himself, how much would CEFC be willing to pay McGonigal for information that would help them avoid being arrested by the FBI? If they'll pay this Albanian $50,000 a month, how much more would they pay the FBI's chief counterintelligence official in New York. And that was always his plan, as evidenced by McGonigal going to Shestakov, his partner with Deripaska, or his intermediary between him and Deripaska, 2 days after he met Ducka for the first time, saying, yo, I just, quote, just secured a very good contact in the Albanian government, which is a narco state, for future business development. Always working towards the future, quote unquote. One of the things that has always really gotten to me about the McGonigal thing is that the FBI gets absolutely no credit and DOJ gets absolutely no credit for finding this guy, investigating him and prosecuting him. And people try to pretend and tell their followers that swamp draining isn't happening when this is one of the biggest swamp creatures imaginable that could exist within the FBI. And it's a very bad thing that he was there. He never should have gotten as high up as he got. I mean, all of those things are true, and there's plenty of criticism that could be made about that. But upon him being discovered, he was rooted out. And I don't think they're done with him. I really don't think they're done with him. Whether it's there's going to be more charges or he's going to be a source for things. Considering in his proffer how he minimized his motivations, as said here, and minimized other things and wasn't forthcoming, I don't know that he would be a very good witness against others or a source. So it might be more likely that the FBI would be interested in charging McGonigal if they can find some more violations of his. OIG says here, we analyze McGonigal's actions in the context of applicable laws, government ethics rules, and FBI policies that are designed to protect non-public government information and the integrity of the FBI and their ongoing investigations. Based upon the foregoing, we concluded by a preponderance of the evidence that McGonigal violated multiple of these standards through the leaks investigation and the non-public information he disclosed. He violated these things, and it goes into each one that he violated here. As discussed above, McGonigal's failure to inform the FBI case team had tangible consequences, and it's under redaction here what was messed up. But it also says here this part about the chairman. So I wonder, there's someone else. I don't know why that would be redacted. Maybe it has to do with Gal Luft, whose case is pending. Or maybe it has to do with someone a name hasn't been given to. Maybe there's someone else that was going to be arrested and we don't know about. Okay. Now comes probably the best part of this show. Is I'm going to go through Dawson S. Field's thread breaking down that same OIG report. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole OIG report again. Thank you for sticking with me through that. I know this has been a very long show. If you've gotten information, if you've enjoyed my commentary and you've enjoyed everything I presented here, make sure you're following me in these places and that you're listening one of these places or watching one of these places. And if you're not signed up to justhuman.substack.com, it's free. But if you would very much like to support the show, a paid subscription to Substack is the best way. Subscribe through browser. That's the best way to subscribe, is through your browser, not the app. But the app is great to listen through or watch through. I will say that. It's just not great to subscribe through. But there's other ways to support. If you're interested in buying some honey, Vincent Honey Farms has the best honey I've ever had in my life. Bootleg Products has some of the best salsas and homemade chili I've ever had in my entire life. And I've had a lot of sauces and chili, and I mean, that's kind of my thing. I cook a lot. But Bootleg Products are insanely good. They're insanely good. In fact, I ran out of Bootleg's taco seasoning recently, and I needed taco seasoning. as any good Texas boy does. And so I bought another brand of taco seasoning, and it is far inferior, many standard deviations inferior to Bootleg's products. But I don't buy anybody else's chili because theirs is amazing. Also, Ko-Fi.com, if you're just like, yeah, I like what you do, Kyle, I think I'll buy you a cup of coffee. Thank you. Ko-Fi.com is the place to go. Thank you for keeping my fancy mustache mug full. Okay. Also, if you're not following Dawson, you probably should. You probably should. Because his threads are outstanding, and I have to credit him with opening my eyes to so many of these documents and to so many of these swamp draining investigations. Too many people on the right say, but nothing is happening. And Dawson constantly reminds us and shows us through the documents that no, indeed, much is happening. So now let's go to his thread and connect McGonigal to so many other things. It's going to connect to Spygate and the Russia hoax. And if you don't know yet, Trump and others were helping the FBI hunt a Russian mole in the FBI. Hillary called it a hoax and used it to frame Donald Trump. That mole was McGonigal. Maybe there are others, but that mole was definitely McGonigal. And who knows how much information he transmitted to the Russians. This investigation against looking for the FBI mole began in at least 2010, when someone within the FBI tipped the Russians off that the FBI was tracking Russian illegal agents working in the U.S. Why warn the Russians? Well, the FBI and Russian spies were getting close to the Clintons and DNC fundraising. And we know this thanks to this right here. This article from October 20th, 2017. Russian intelligence targeted Hillary Clinton before she became the Secretary of State in 2009, FBI documents show. New FBI information about corruption in a Clinton-approved uranium deal. Remember Uranium One? Raises questions about Clinton's actions after the FBI broke up a deep cover Russia spy ring in 2010. For a decade, the FBI ran an operation called Ghost Stories to monitor and rip apart a deep cover Russian agent network. Ghost Stories tracked a ring of Russian spies who lived between Boston and Washington, D.C. under false identities. It was one of the FBI's most elaborate and successful counterintelligence operations in history. So that sets up McGonigal. If you get a crooked guy in there, there's a lot of money that they could make by tipping off the Russians to protect against them being found out again. While none of this is covered in the report, the OIG report we just read, the FBI mole hunters at FBI started investigating to identify the new Russian spies being sent to New York. But to find the mole, you need an asset borrowed from another agency that the FBI agents don't know. Insert male one playing as a consultant. And who do you think that consultant was? And this is the Evgeny Buryakov case, which is a case that I really should one day do an episode on or two and go into the details of. But there's a lot to get into. There's a lot to get into with that case. But that case gives us a ton of information about Donald Trump and his work as an asset and the work of others around him being assets of the FBI, going after Russian spies and the Russian mob. When the new illegal Russian spy, Evgeny Buryakov, pled guilty in March of 2016, someone, likely the mole, had Carter Page identified as undercover FBI employee 1 or UCE 1. Was it an effort to warn the Russians that Page was a U.S. intelligence asset? Pause. If you guys don't know, that Carter Page is an asset. He was an asset for the FBI and he was an asset for the CIA. This is one of the key clues, okay? This should alert you and make bells go off in your head about Russiagate. Because in Russiagate, the FBI takes out a FISA warrant on Carter Page. Why would they do that for their own undercover employee? Because they're not after Carter Page. They're after others. But they needed to protect their asset. It's like a masking play. But the media on the left told you they were after Donald Trump. And the media on the right told you they were after Donald Trump, didn't they? And the media on the left said they were after Donald Trump because Donald Trump was crooked. And the media on the right said the FBI was after Donald Trump because the FBI is crooked. Both lied to you. What Hillary told everyone was that an FBI investigation of Carter Page, Donald Trump, Felix Sater, and Michael Cohen was in fact those U.S. intelligence assets helping FBI catch the Russians. If you believe the FBI investigated them, then you believe Hillary's Russia hoax. Think on it. Think on it. Media on the left and media on the right peddled Hillary's Russia hoax, that the FBI was investigating these people because they were Russian assets. And the right said the FBI was investigating those people because the FBI is crooked. Well, there are people in the FBI who are crooked. Or at least there were. There probably still are. And there probably will be again. Because every organization has crooked people in it and people in it that shouldn't be there. Whether it's your local grocery store, your local police department, or the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Or it's the U.S. military, or it's the pharmaceutical industry, or it's Congress, which that's almost everybody there shouldn't be there. The trick is getting whatever audience you're speaking to believe your personally massaged narrative that these are your bad guys, these are your good guys, or these are your bad guys and these are your good guys and these are your bad guys, right? You got to watch out for that programming, and the way you watch out for it is by going to the documents and tracking these things, because as you track these things, it brings clarity to all of it. But the FBI was unable to admit that they were all U.S. intelligence assets. The government can't just come out and say these things. You're not going to have the FBI or the CIA or Donald Trump come out and say, by the way, I'm an asset and I've been catching bad guys. I'm actually Batman. That's why I told that one kid that one time in the limo that, yep, I'm Batman. Which is true. That's why he did that. He did that because Donald Trump really is Batman. More so than any other person in the history of the world has been a real-life Batman. And so that's as close as he's going to get to admitting this. And it's up to you to infer what he means by it. Is he joking? No. So many people believe that what Hillary was saying. Hillary and her media were saying that the FBI was out to get Trump. And media on the right, what were they saying? That the FBI was out to get Trump. But in truth, the FBI and Trump are on the same team. Dawson says, I'll skip to what is covered by the report. Beginning in early 2017, Special Agent McGonigal ran the FBI's counterintelligence office. From October 2016 to September 2018, he pled guilty to illegally working for the Albanian government or for an official there, Chinese oil company, and a Russian oligarch. This investigation looks at McGonigal's leaks of law enforcement information to Chinese spies. It didn't look at other things. There are other things they could look at McGonigal for, but this OIG report specifically looked at these things. Okay? That doesn't mean there won't be another OIG report that looks at other corruption that McGonigal engaged in, or that there won't be further indictments of McGonigal for corrupt or unlawful acts that he committed. It depends on what can be proved and when those charges should be brought, because you have to think about when they should be brought, whether or not they're going to alert other targets. That investigation used another asset, likely borrowed from CIA, like Page. Hunter Biden would not be known to FBI counterintelligence personnel. The suspects were also caught bribing foreign officials in a building that Donald Trump had wired for FBI surveillance. Folks, that's how we have the audio of Hunter describing Ho to one of his friends. He was in a Trump-owned building. And Trump-owned buildings serve as surveillance centers, and we know this going back to 1980. It doesn't mean that absolutely every single one is, but there sure are a large number of individuals who get caught on audio or video at Trump-owned properties, golf courses, hotels, restaurants. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how many bad guys tend to get caught at these places that Trump owns? Almost like Trump is Batman and the FBI is Commissioner Gordon, and they're working together to catch these people. Don't you think it's kind of odd that Hunter Biden is so close to this investigation? Don't you think it's kind of odd that Hunter Biden meets with these people at a Trump-owned property? Think about it. How many coincidences you need? Huh? How many coincidences you need? In addition to warning the Chinese, an Israeli working for the Chinese was warned. Gal Luft, who pretended to be a whistleblower against Hunter Biden, having no clue who caught him and his Chinese employers. Gal Luft didn't know that Hunter Biden was working for the CIA. And the people in the FBI, as Dawson pointed out, they wouldn't have known that Hunter Biden was working for the CIA. But it makes a lot of sense. What Gal Luft was doing for the Chinese is he was using Clinton CIA director Woolsey and Lieutenant General Flynn, either wittingly or unwittingly, to trick Trump into implementing a foreign policy that would help China. That was what he was going for, and you can read all that in the Gal Luft indictment, which I read on this show way back when. And what you think about Lieutenant General Flynn, I'm still in the Flynn's a good guy camp. I still am. I'm still in the Flynn's a good guy camp. Even though a lot of his social media posts over the past year or so make me cringe. But there's just too many. There's too many things around Flynn where he gets close to some really swampy people, and then those swampy people get in trouble. And it just seems way too. It seems more likely to me that Flynn works as an asset of the FBI and the DIA. And I think that's what this was about. Him partnering with Woolsey, and then Woolsey partnering with Gal Luft to have their Center for Strategic Initiatives or whatever, CSIS or whatever it was. And if Woolsey can't get Trump to make China great again, then Luft will accuse Woolsey and Trump of selling out, including with China, and that's what Luft ended up doing. And what, by the way, Luft and Woolsey, they're part of the group that infiltrated Trump's campaign, which, remember, the FBI was investigating swamp creatures that were in Trump's campaign, including Manafort and these guys. They were in Trump's campaign, and Woolsey was trying to become the DNI or Secretary of Defense or be an advisor to Trump. And it didn't work out for him because Trump's not an idiot and knew that those guys are swamp creatures, knew Woolsey was a swamp creature, but he let him get close enough to where possibly they could be caught on some of that FISA surveillance or some other surveillance apparatus that was employed. McGonigal is selling info to conspirators who are working against Trump in the U.S. How does it tie to Putin, to the Russia hoax? Well, because the false allegations against FBI assets, Page and Trump said they were going to be sold or given Rosneft shares in a sweetheart deal. Those shares were sold to the CEFC. So while the dossier told everyone Page and Trump were buying Rosneft, swampy international commodity traders Glencore were selling it to the CEFC and the Qatar Investment Authority. That's right, Glencore, Mark Rich, the Clinton world. Those are Woolsey is Clinton world. Glencore is Clinton world. Always make sure you like everyone's post in a thread, by the way. It really helps the thread. Just FYI. Most people only like the first post in the thread, but when you go through and like all the posts in the thread, it really helps the thread do better. All right, McGonigal is selling info to the co-conspirators. So while Steele dossier told of those things, right here, February 2017, Rosneft announced its first deal to buy Kurdish oil, and in June, the two sides signed an even bigger deal. Funny how Qatar Investment Authority comes up again. That's the same group that was paying off Menendez. If I'm remembering right. I'm pretty sure I am. Person B is Dorian Ducka, the Albanian Deputy Minister of Energy and Industry. That's why he's an employee of CEFC. The Chinese created an NGO to get access to the UN and officials from countries working at the UN, and then bribe these officials to get drilling rights in those countries. It is likely the president of Chad was assassinated because he refused their bribes. That also, McGonigal would be an asset to them in getting influence in the UN, and it just makes me wonder what other things McGonigal might have communicated to people about who at the UN was under investigation, what info the FBI had. I wonder, this McGonigal investigation could go in so many directions because he had the ability to look into so many different swampy people at the UN. And I can't get it out of my head that he was courting Nikki Haley while she was ambassador to the UN, and that had to do with some sort of pharmaceutical deal in Europe. And I just can't help but wonder if there's something to that. And it may not be that Nikki Haley is swampy, but it could be that that whatever he was trying to work on there, he was trying to get the UN or the US to influence something at the UN, or see if he could get people in the US lobby at the UN, there's a better word for it, to influence in a way that would make him and his friends in Albania or Russia more money, and then him more money as a consequence. President Debi's son eventually took power in Chad, and then Putin did what? Oh, he sent Wagner Group and other mercenaries into Chad to force out Debi's anti-China government. Your news media probably didn't tell you anything about that. The Wagner Group that's in Africa is one of the only elements of Wagner that's left. It's barely functional. I recently saw some video of it in action. I say recently, I think it was 2 months ago. It's crazy how Wagner or Wagner, whatever, is barely a thing anymore. McGonigal's assistants helped these individuals evade arrest and destroy evidence. But Gao Luft proffered that case information had been leaked to help them escape. Information provided by CEFC's China chairperson, also known as the spy chief of China, which Hunter was talking about right here in this text message. It's a text message to Haley, right? McGonigal was helping these people escape justice and commit swampy crimes by leaking information for cash. Another FBI agent introduced McGonigal to Agron-Neza. That agent was indicted on multiple counts, but charges were lessened for cooperation, and he pleaded guilty. He conducted ops similar to McGonigal and searched FBI databases and leaked info. I believe this agent is Mark Rossini. Yep, it is. So in spring of 2017, by the way, that woman is not Mark. That's the Puerto Rican governor person he was funneling illegal campaign contributions to. So in spring of 2017, McGonigal is tipping off former spies in Albania and current spies from China that the FBI is investigating them for public corruption at the UN. McGonigal was using his role as head of New York counterintelligence to make money and develop clients for his post-retirement business. His business associate, Sergei Shestakov, was a former Soviet and Russian diplomat at the UN. Was he also an intel agent? Seems possible, or even likely. He became a U.S. citizen and worked as a translator after the Soviet Union fell. McGonigal leaked highly sensitive and classified info to his clients, obstructing investigations of the Chinese, Albanian, and Russian criminals. FBI had a FISA on Ho and others involved in these crimes. Duka was partners with Agron-Neza, an Albanian intel agent. Duka rode a train from Florida to D.C. to talk to Ho in person and avoid phone surveillance, but claims McGonigal didn't warn about the FISA. Sure, I'm sure he didn't tell you about that FISA. It seems like information he might have forgotten about, right? You know he told him. You know he told him because his actions indicate that he was informed. That's why he avoided using a phone. That's why he traveled in person by train. That's why he insisted on only talking to the chairperson in person. The targets were warning each other based on the intel that McGonigal was providing them. The spy chief of China knew that there were arrest warrants based on the information that McGonigal shared. Dawson says, I wonder who the chairman's other Israeli friend was that Duka thought might be a target instead of Gao Luft. Apparently, McGonigal didn't recognize them or react when shown a picture, and that's a great question. Who could that person be? Another person identified in this photo is Alir Mehta. Who is Alir Mehta? I'm just going to check real quick and see. Actually, I misspelled his name. Here it is right here. He's Albanian also and was president of Albania from 2017 to 2022. So it's not him. It's not him. Okay. Just wanted to, I remembered that there was another name that I hadn't looked at there. So I wonder who it is. I can't think of another Israeli person in this CEFC circle. And I don't remember another one from the Gao Luft indictment. Sure, all right. McGonigal was then asked about a subordinate, the coordinating supervisory special agent on the investigation for the identity of the Israeli target. He also fished around to see if the spy chief of China, Yi Jianming, was going to be indicted. Yi believed that didn't believe Ducka that the FBI was really interested in prosecuting the CEFC. So Ducka identified McGonigal as his source. McGonigal warned Ducka that the FBI was ready to arrest them and to not come to the U.S. They approached another government asset, James Biden, to see if there were warrants for their arrest. Biden, in coordination with a retired Secret Service agent, contacted the FBI in New York to see if there were warrants for Ho and others. They managed to convince Ho to come to the U.S. and be arrested. Funny how that worked. What? Ask yourself, guys, if the things that right-wing media have said about the Bidens being corrupt and being assets of President Xi and the crooked Chinese, why would James Biden work to convince Patrick Ho, and obviously the chairman came too, Yi Jianming came also. He just avoided arrest. Why would James Biden get his business partners, who he's supposedly been paid all these millions of dollars, why would he get them to come to the U.S.? McGonigal continued to communicate and meet with Ducka, warnings that allowed Chairman Yi to avoid subpoenas and warrants for documents that FBI wanted as evidence. McGonigal helped the spy chief of China escape from FBI evidence collection and likely arrest. After he was caught, McGonigal offered to cooperate with immunity for his testimony, but he immediately tried to lie to the OIG and FBI about the CEFC case. He pretended he didn't know Ducka was CEFC, and then he was shown, we read all that section. He's not a good liar. Yeah, Donaldson agreed. He's not a good liar. It's obvious that he's lying. So he gets shown like we know all this stuff already. And eventually McGonigal doesn't get full immunity for this stuff, but he does proffer some information. And McGonigal was Yep. Okay. We read all that. McGonigal also helped Gal Luft escape arrest. Luft infiltrated the Trump campaign, as I said earlier, and sabotaged Trump's America First foreign policy. But Hillary's Russia hoax duped most Americans into believing that the FBI was after Trump. And FBI attempted to seize Yi's devices, but didn't know where he was because McGonigal had hid him from the very FBI that he was in charge of in New York. McGonigal used his role as FBI's New York counterintelligence special agent in charge for his personal profit and the profit of his business partner Sergei Shestakov, who may have been a Soviet and Russian intelligence asset. Hostile foreign agents were being protected by the guy who was supposed to be in charge of counterintelligence in New York City. And now ask yourself, if McGonigal was a bigger name, how much this would be celebrated. Think about what a swamp creature and how bad this guy is, and how this whole story gets such short, just glancing news coverage. And it tells you a lot. It tells you a lot about media on the left and media on the right. Both mainstream and alt and underground. There are all of these, as I keep saying, there's all these bogeymen, all these noted named bad guys who are held up by media as being, this is the guy. It's on the left, it's Rudy Giuliani and others, like they're so crooked, and different politicians. The left has their own showcase and it's Trump's kids and some of Trump's business partners. It's Felix Sater. All these guys, they try and make you believe on the left that these are really bad. They're Russian agents. They're mobsters. They're crooked. They're so corrupt. And then they ignore a bunch of people who actually are. And on the right, it's the same thing. It's just the names change, but it's the same tactic. But then you have actual bad guys who we can point to with documentation and testimony and court cases. And that gets ignored because it doesn't serve it doesn't serve a political narrative of either side. The left wants you to believe that Trump must be crooked and Trump's friends are crooked because that's the political angle they're going for. And the right wants you to believe that the FBI must be crooked or that Joe Biden must be crooked because that's the angle they're going for. And of course, Trump and Biden attack each other. It's politics. But watch how they parse their words. And they have fun with it. Right? And never forget what Joe Biden did to throw the election to Trump. So it's funny because this is like such a feel good story also, because this is the swamp draining we want to see and the justice you want to see. But like I said earlier, at the same time, there's also this pain of knowing that most Americans won't see this and they won't know the good work that the good law enforcement officers did. And it would be so much better. In fact, it would be so much better if we could appreciate Biden and the Biden family for actually who they are. Just like so many of us wish that people on the left politically could appreciate Trump and his family for who they are. I know that I want really badly to like display my Trump gear and talk to people that are politically different than I and have them not overreact and be turned off just by the mention of Trump's name. I want TDS to be gone, but TDS is programmed into people just like Biden derangement syndrome has been programmed into people. But imagine if that wasn't the case. If instead of seeing them as the caricatures that media portrays them as, we saw them just as people who have differing politics. And if somehow we could appreciate them just on that basis, and we could have reasonable disagreement with them, we'd be in such a better place as far as our political discourse. But the swamp doesn't want that. The swamp doesn't want our political discourse to be nuanced. And neither do the media figures, because there's way too much money to be made off trading attention and trading accusations and keeping people engaged in the polarized construct that they've worked for so long to create and position us into. Okay, really long episode, but I feel like it was worth going through all the information. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll tune in next time when I go over more cases. We have more cases to catch up on. I think I might catch us up on the Seth Rich case next. It's been a while. It's been a long while since we looked at the Seth Rich FOIA case. And that's another one that could be impacted by this secret FBI room, right? So, yeah, I think we're going to head there next. So, yeah. All right. God bless you all. stay positive, and stay human. And remember, we're all just human. Treat those around you as, I mean, of course, how you want to be treated, right? But recognize that you're just human, and so are they. I'll see you next time.